Blazblue Entropy effect is finally out now in 1.0, and long story short is this game is incredible. First, let me mention that the devs did sponsor me to present this 1.0 content to you. But as an action roguelike fan, I want you to see all the best parts that make this game actually great. If you've played the game in early access, trust me, there's a lot of roguelike features that have been updated, so you'll want to watch through this entire video to get all the details. Still, if you're a fan of action games like Dead Cells and Astral Ascent, you'll feel right at home here. This game emphasizes combat and build making first and foremost, using some of the best characters in the Blazblue franchise. And yes, I said these are the best characters. So for a general gameplay introduction, you are an Acer in Sky City. Acers train their minds in combat simulations in order to defend against the threat of entropy particles that are in the real world. This is a hub virtual world that contains all the story elements. Here you talk to various NPCs, learning about mind training, which is essentially the run of the game. When you're ready to begin that mind training, you head over to the character selection screen, reminiscent to what you'd expect from a fighting game. You choose your character, then choose an Evo type to add to your character, sort of as an inheritance. This is a very interesting system where the runs that you either completed or died in can be inherited into your next runs, but we'll go into more depth later. Early on in your run, the gameplay will feel relatively simple. You fight with basic attacks and a skill until all the monsters on the screen are dead, and then you proceed into the next stage. Early access players will notice immediately that the stage selection has been a little more streamlined. As this continues, the true gameplay systems begin to emerge, which is where the game truly has me hooked in. Let me introduce you to potential. This is the system where Blazblue and roguelike elements start to blend together. Originally, you had a very basic character. They may have a combo, a skill, and a passive ability. Picking up a potential grants you one enhancement or a brand new attack for your kit. Each individual potential has its own perks that either augment it or give it further actions. Early access players will also notice this has been changed too. Earlier, we had an issue about grabbing unwanted abilities in order to unlock a synergy, but now each potential just has its own perk tree that you get at random from obtaining potentials. Alright, so how about we take a look at some potentials from someone like S. S starts off with her basic combo. She has a 1, 2, 3, 4 with crescent blades that show up at the end. She also has a couple of aerial hits, and then her special, her skill, summons this crescent ring that floats for a little while. But when we get our first potential, I actually screw up by double clicking it, but what this actually is, we can now stomp on the enemy to bounce on it up to 3 times. The third bounce will plunge a giant crest into the ground. Our next potential says that, and I apologize ahead of time, since I'm playing an alpha copy of the game, it actually has some of the dev wording for the names. But it says it blinks along a diagonal path while blinking, and this does damage. This actually uses SP instead of MP. You gain SP whenever you land crest attacks, which is important for S to do. The next potential actually gives her a ground combo with down square. You slash with her broadsword 3 times and then summon the crest at the end. The best part about this is that the crest actually summons in the sky and allows you to hit targets both in front of you and behind you. Then we'll pick up her grounded charge attack. On this, when you hold the attack button, you slash with a crest. This can stack up to 3 times, I believe, before it summons a gigantic crest in front of you. Then we get a new skill. This is down triangle. It sends out a shockwave up to 3 times. The third attack breaks super armor. That diagonal blink attack that I got earlier, we now have the second piece to that. We can overspend our MP The next one we pick up says that it adds crests at the starting location of any of our dashes, both on the ground and in the air. This one's actually really easy to tell that it's working because we have random crests that start showing up. There are also some generic options. Here we're gonna pick up triple jump. If you're knocked away, you can actually press the jump button to recover. Speaking of being airborne, a lot of times you're locked into certain combos, but with this one, not only do we reset our combo counter in the air, but we can follow up aerial attacks with any other kind of attack. Speaking of being in the air, we now generate a crest every time we jump. Of course, this one is also really easy to see because the crests are right under her feet. Even more aerial actions. Stepping on an enemy will reset the combo counter of the airborne attack. Another very simple action here, dash up to 3 times. Don't forget we summon a crest every time we dash. And then finally we pick up a universal option. Whenever we summon a crest, more crests are generated. With all of these potential options stacked up, we get to the final boss, and hopefully it's enough to take out Susano. Watch some of this gameplay and see if you can spot each one of the potentials we picked up, and then compare it to the beginning of this segment on how my original S looked then compared to how it looks now. This is probably one of the best features of Entropy Effect. It really defines the attacks you'll be using throughout your entire run. But that's not all, because as a roguelite game, there are other systems that enhance your character's attack power, and that's called tactics. Tactics are like your classic roguelike draft for elemental enhancements. You have electricity, fire, toxin, light, blade, ice, and umbra, and they all grant different benefits, and some of which have their own synergies as well. And trust me, there are a lot of enhancements to choose from. The list goes on, but it's best to think of tactics as part of your attack stat. A lot of these do passive damage while you are actively engaged with enemies. Most of my game-winning runs revolve around having an emphasis on specific tactics. There are even duo tactics and final evolutions to the tactics tree if you keep up with it accordingly. My advice is to try to use the tactics tree to get a preview of which ones you require to unlock the final tiers or the duos, because those are going to make your game-winning builds. Now, I've been playing this game for a few hours now, and I gotta say, all the 10 characters are great. There isn't a single one of these I actually don't enjoy playing. Let me give you a rundown of which characters you can expect in 1.0. There's Kokonoe, which is a scientist that floods the battlefield with rockets. Hakumen, a sword-wielding warrior with a powerful parry attack. You can parry just about everything in the game. Mai Nasume fires tornadoes alongside multiple spear attacks, some of which you can throw at range. Hibiki is an assassin that can teleport, fire spinning blades, and has Kagebushin as well. Ragna is the premier character of Blazblue. He drains his own HP to deal damage and has some really flashy finishers. Noelle Vermilion is a gunslinger with both long-range and close-range attacks. Eventually, she can unlock lasers and rockets, grenades, and more. Lambda 11 summons blades from portals. She can juggle enemies with her attacks and help them with blade attacks from long range. S fuels her combat abilities with different forms of crescent blades. The crescent blades can be augmented, and she has some really fancy aerial attacks. Jin Kisaragi slows enemies with ice. Eventually, you can fully freeze them. He also has some of the tightest fighting game mechanics in Entropy Effect. And then finally, Taokaka, a really fast flurry attacker with tons of movement options. She may even be, dare I say, the strongest character in the game. We haven't really had a roguelike game with direct ties to another franchise. The concept of releasing new characters from an established roster could drum up some real excitement between Blazblue players, as well as roguelike players that love updates and DLCs for their game. Matter of fact, my first video on Entropy Effect was absolutely full of comments, all requesting different characters. Take this moment to go into the comments and drop some predictions on who you think they'll add next on top of the 1.0 release characters. So even with all your potentials and tactics, this is a roguelike game after all, so death is inevitable. Upon dying in a run, you are awarded with a grade and some meta currency for your efforts. We'll get into that currency a little bit later. The grade for your Evo type, that Blazblue character that you just played, is saved in an Evo type record. These records are used for 3 things. Number 1 is Mind Challenge that puts you up against a boss. There's multiple Mind Challenges, and each one of them allows you to use your Evo record only 1 time. So complete lots of Mind trainings, obtain lots of Evo types, and then take them into Mind Challenge to clear all of them that are listed.
Congratulations.
The second use of the record is what you saw when I started a new run. You actually inherit the base skills of that prototype, their passive ability, and tactics that you chose to keep when you died earlier. Each time you die, the game randomly chooses a couple of tactics, and then you decide which ones are locked into that record. The total amount of Evo types you can save is pretty big, so try to get many different sets so you can mix and match combinations together. But like I said, each character has its own passive and ability, so you may want to grab things that work well with the character you're currently using. So for example, Lambda has a lot of ranged attacks, so when you pair her with Noelle as your Evo type, Noelle gives you bonus damage at far range. Works very well with a character like this. Another example is S generates crests whenever she dodges. You can combine that with Jin, who gives you a slowdown effect when you dodge, and gives you a chance to land all of the crescent blades that S wants to fire out. Finally, the third use of Evo types is something I don't have footage of, but apparently there is a door for PvP. As of the time I'm making this video, I can't guarantee that the PvP will be open at 1.0 launch, but definitely keep an eye on that because that is on the devs' radar. And I remember a lot of the YouTube comments were requesting PvP as a feature. Now let's say you're actually winning runs, and it's time to up the ante a little bit. Standard hard mode from early access has been changed to a brand new entropy system. You select the training difficulty. Starting from 0, it looks like it goes all the way up to 45. I don't know if it goes beyond that because I haven't gotten that far yet. There are many different choices. Enemy HP up, enemies deal more damage, timed combat, start combat with debuffs, and more. Why you would turn these on is that each difficulty you win on gives you access to not only specific rewards, but also enhances the run too. For example, just 1 point of entropy adds money at the start of the run. 5 points of entropy adds new content to Sorticio, which is sort of a Gamba system. 10 points of entropy adds the black market to your runs. 15 points gets you potential refreshes. I won't go through the full list because I want to get surprised when those pop up for me. But this game does reward you for beating each difficulty, and it even rewards you per character. I gotta say, this is my favorite kind of action roguelike. Gameplay knowledge and mechanical prowess come together to pull off some flashy looking stuff. It is that simple as I press the button and then everything on my screen disappears, even though there are some builds that can reach that point. The real fun to me is that the enemies actually fight back, and I have to know how to pilot my character to combat. I really hope this becomes the gold standard for action roguelikes in the future. I don't want a game that is just on autopilot, and as a content creator, these kind of games look great if I can show them off. If you think you like what you see, leave a like on the video and check out some of these full runs of Blazblue that I've already done so far. Don't forget to leave a comment on not only your favorite character, but your predictions on the next characters that the devs will add in. Either way, thanks for listening to me ramble on about this game, and I'll catch you next time.